All right. Good morning to some of you. Good afternoon to some others. I hit *5 before. I'm going to hit it again. There we go. We're in lecture mode. No, we're not. Test. We're good. All right. Well, it's good to be with you again, and only a couple weeks after our last one. As you can see from the screen, if you're looking at it, I want you to picture your foot in that, or maybe your head. We're going to talk about, we may dramatize it a little bit, but frankly, for some of you, in some situations, the word deadly is actually, as far as from a business analogy, very appropriate. And we're going to talk about the 10 deadly failure traps. And I'm excited to cover them. These are things that, as I learned and watched, I got warned of these by good mentorship, which is one of the great blessings of my life, was to have such quality mentorship early in my business so that I could avoid these traps. And I watched a lot of people who didn't listen step into these. I watched other people who listened but didn't do anything about it, who didn't discipline themselves and organize themselves appropriately so that they could avoid them. And it is my sincere hope as I cover these things that some of you will get greater clarity about what to do and much greater clarity about what not to do and what to avoid. At the same time, some of you have experienced some of this stuff and you have your own feelings and testimony about it, and it would be good to share that with your team if you haven't already about things to avoid. The one thing I can't give you, which is one of the absolute keys to your success, is experience. But I can give you the benefit of mine, and I always believed in borrowing wisdom because I didn't want to wait to learn everything the hard way. That's a very expensive and tedious and long-term process. And so it's great when we're children to listen to mom and dad and other good leaders around us, and it's good in business to listen to those who have the mileage on their odometer to show you the way. And so let's go on to our first slide, or I guess our second. Now, if someone sold you a gun that looked like this, I think it would be important to avoid it. Certainly not to use it. And hopefully none of you will have all 10 of these failure traps or have experienced all 10 or experiencing all 10. But the bottom line is just one of them can seriously damage your business. You don't need to fire all 6 rounds out of this gun that points back at yourself to learn your lesson, hopefully. All right? And we'd like you to avoid actually pulling the trigger on any of these 10 at all. But as we review these, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions. 1, is this a challenge for me or my team? If so, how much of a problem is it for my business? And then what do I need to do to remedy the situation if I'm in it? And now, just let's say you answered the first one correctly, hopefully in a positive way, that it isn't a challenge. That doesn't mean it won't become one. And so we bring in too many new people not to keep reviewing these kind of things. And the reality is, as a leader, you've got to say this to yourself: I must take responsibility for this. That's true of almost everything that we're doing. As a leader, you've got to take responsibility. I do. Part of my taking responsibility is going through this with you right now. But I've been going through these things for years. And with teammates and with different parts of the company. And I want you to get clarity. Let's go. Number 1, failure trap. This is the one I see kill more people faster, earlier. And that's where we don't focus on character strength. If we aren't involved in personal improvement and growth, unless by some miracle you come into this business almost perfect as a human being, then we're going to struggle more than we want to. You know, it's interesting that someone here, well, I won't talk about it. I was listening to someone on a team. I won't identify the team, although I may have just given it away. And who's got somebody underneath them. And this person had been overlapping to that person's recruit, helping them some. It was good because the person in between is a little busy, but this guy's cleared up his time and has gone out and finished a couple of sales. And the other guy got really mad, you know, and I'm never going to help him again. You know, that kind of thought process. When that's his own teammate, they're both his teammates. Rather than be excited for the fact that they're writing some business and making some things happen, the guy decided to take offense. Well, that's frankly a character problem. You know, when you get mad about things you shouldn't be getting mad about, you know, and you've heard me say this before, if you've heard me talk about this subject even once, that the number one reflection of our character is how we treat other people. And so when he's saying those kinds of things, now hopefully he doesn't say it to the guy, but at the same time, when you're thinking those kind of things, people feel how you feel, you know, and because you're not as kind to them, you're not as encouraging, or worse yet, we say things we shouldn't say. And so what I really want to address at this moment is your tongue. You know, that thing inside your mouth, you know, and controlling the tongue. Now, I swear some people, and I've met plenty of them in the business, the only way to truly control their tongue is duct tape. You know, and sometimes I feel like I need to go around with a big roll of it in my pocket, you know, and go around slapping this over people's mouths. And admittedly, a bunch of times I'd be slapping it over my own mouth. But control the tongue is one of the greatest challenges in life. You know, we mess up our marriages, our friendships, our relationships with our children, our teammates, because we don't control it. We think something, then we say it. You know, now, hopefully one day we'll control what we think, but let's first control our tongue. Now, I've given this challenge to some of you before, but I'm going to extend it again. It's a 24-hour challenge. It's kind of like a cleansing diet in food, you know, and the cleansing diet is going to be for your tongue that you don't say anything, absolutely nothing critical or negative about anything or anybody for 24 hours. Now, some of you are going to need to go buy some duct tape because that's the only way you're going to be able to do it. But some of you probably are already saying something negative or critical about me right now because I'm giving you this challenge. And so I want to, but it is a serious challenge, one that I take seriously. It could be the start of a new life for you, that if you would accept the fact that if you can't stop yourself from saying things that are critical or negative for a 24-hour period, then you probably have lost control of your tongue. And if you, let me put it this way, if you couldn't live without alcohol for 24 hours, you couldn't live without some drug for 24 hours, then you're addicted. You know, you're suffering from an addiction. And it's an addiction you would want to break. Well, if you can't go 24 hours without saying unkind, negative, and critical things, then you're addicted to that. You know, and it's interesting, just because so many of us are addicted doesn't excuse it. We've still got to fight to control it. And this is one of the big failure traps. I've seen so many people stay small or blow up their businesses and fail completely because they won't just become nicer. They won't improve themselves. You know, our task, I believe, in this life is to become better people. I mean, it's really the challenge of mortality if you got your thoughts straight. You know, and one of the great challenges of becoming better is controlling our tongue and the things we say. And so I want all of you, you know, within the sound of my voice, to accept this challenge. And if it's tough, that's okay. Start again. You make a mistake, your 24 hours starts over. You get 12 hours into it, you blow it, you got to start again. And bottom line, I guess a lot of us would be fighting the rest of our lives to control it. Well, let's do it. There are few things that'll serve us better than learning to control the tongue. Now, at the same time, things don't exist in a vacuum, so you just can't put duct tape over your mouth. You need to replace, if you've got a habit pattern of being critical and negative and putting down folks, then replace it with pushing them up, with looking for the good in people and saying good things. That's the ultimate antidote. And you'll find out it's a lot more fun, and you'll feel a lot better about yourself. And I promise you, everybody around you will feel better about you. Now, another thing I want you to think of in relation to character strength is, what do you stand for? You know, are you clear on the difference between right and wrong? If so, then make sure people know that you're clear on it. You're clear between the honesty and dishonesty. Hopefully you're standing for honesty. You're standing for integrity. You're standing for treating people right. You stand for saying kind and good things about others. You stand for lifting people up and building them. This is, if you understand it, your brand. Now, we think about companies having brands, but if you'll stop a minute, you'll understand every one of us has a brand. Now, you can think, if you know me a little bit, what's my brand? You know, and you might think about, but what would others say your brand is? Is it, do you stand for the right things? Do you fight for the consumer? Right? Are you determined to strengthen and support your team in every way you can? You know, that doesn't mean you accept mediocrity. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line is you have a brand. Or maybe you don't have much of a brand. Which is your brand? Not having much of a brand. Maybe your brand is being a pansy, or being, you know, just someone that doesn't talk much about what you stand for. And I think then you need to strengthen your brand. This is all part of character strength and being a leader. So you get this right, people want to follow you. And if you don't, people don't want to follow you. And of course, that's the biggest failure trap of all. And so I want you to think about something. What's more important? That people like you or trust you? Now, hopefully it's both. But the number one thing they need to be able to do is trust you. Even if you get on their nerves once in a while, if they know you as a good, honest person, right, who is striving to live a life of integrity, they can know they can trust you around their family, trust you with their money, right, trust you to have their interest in mind, trust you, right, to know your stuff. All right, that's more important. You can build on that. There are lots of people I like that I think are kind of interesting people and interesting personalities that I don't trust, or I don't know if I can trust them. And so liking is nowhere near as important. Now, I think it's important to be likable, but I think it's far more important to be trustworthy. And so while you're working on becoming likable, make sure you are trustworthy. The whole bottom line to this failure trap is this question. Are we willing to become better people? Are we willing to become better people? That's our challenge. That's our task. As long as the answer to that is yes, you, even if you stumble some in this failure trap, like we all do, we all make some mistakes, right? That's part of being human. But with all of that, we just got to constantly strive to become better people. If so, we're going to be in good shape. So don't underemphasize this. Don't treat it casually. I'm going to get into things more specific to the business. Maybe they'll be more interesting to you, but nothing is more important than the things we just discussed. Accept that 24-hour challenge. Accept the challenge with all of us, and I accept that challenge myself to become a better person. All right, number 2, teamwork in the home. I think sometimes this is the most underestimated of the powers in this business. You know, one, for you to ignore what you're doing in your own business, I mean, in terms of you personally, teamwork in your own home, you just can't, well, actually you can, but you shouldn't, and I hope you won't, underestimate the power of emotional support, of having somebody believe in you. You know, my wife does affirmations in the shower. I'm married to a maniac. I think she's probably married to one too. And I know I'm married to one. And a lovely, sweet, righteous woman. And she does her affirmations in the shower in cold water. So she'll take her shower, then turn it on cold. I'm letting out one of my wife's secrets. And she will stand in the cold water doing her affirmations, sometimes 5-10 minutes. One of the things that she does, and I feel how she does this every day, I feel it in the way she works with me, is she talks to herself in affirmations about how special her husband is. What a wonderful thing. Well, I'm getting a little choked up here, taking me by surprise here. What a wonderful thing to have in your sweetheart is someone who believes in you. Now, we've got to earn that and keep earning it. But the reality is that when we foster this in our teams, with our teammates, in the homes of our teammates, by involving the spouse, by communicating with them, and by understanding how critical they are to the success of every individual that has a spouse, a significant other, whatever these things are called today. But the bottom line, you've got to ask yourself, who's the most important person in the business? You may think it's you, and in reality, it's that person who is most significant in your life, whose opinion means more to you than any other. And if they're not supporting you in the business, if they're not believing, if they're not supporting your teammates in the business, then you know, if you have any experience, what a dilemma this is. But here's one of the problems, is that when we find this problem, we avoid it too many times as leaders. We won't go sit down with a spouse. We won't call them in. I could tell you 100, maybe 1,000 stories, but I remember one in particular. A guy was really struggling. His wife was very negative with him, and he said, "Well, she just doesn't support me in the business." And I said, "Well, do you have just enough influence to get her to come down to meet me? Because if not, I was going to go see her." But he said he thought he did, and she came down with him. It was one evening before a BPM, and I asked her how she felt about his involvement in the business. She says, "You don't want to know." And I told her, "I really do want to know. No matter how, you may feel very negative about it, but I want to hear it, and I want to hear why you do. And because how you feel matters to me. You may not believe it much at this point, but I hope by the time we're done that I can show you how much I care about what you think." Then she probably went off for 15 or 20 minutes. I mean, she hardly took a breath. And it turned out that the source of the problem was that her husband, she had 4 young children. I mean, seriously, 4 young children under 6. And he was hanging around the office, and I hadn't really noticed it, or hadn't thought about it because I didn't realize. So she was carrying the weight all day and really needed a little bit of a break and support and he was staying around. She was supporting him in the business, but he was hanging around here too much. And she thought it was because we were keeping him here. Yeah, but we were pretty good at finishing our meetings and getting folks on home to their families, but he was hanging around to the last guy, kind of avoiding it. And boy, I want you to know, I straightened that guy's act out in front of his wife and challenged him and told her that if he kept doing these kinds of things, all she needed to do was call me, and I'd run him off out of the business. And it ended up that she became one of our strongest spouses, one of the most supportive, one of the most positive, because she saw a positive influence on their marriage and on their family because of the things that we were working not only with her, but with him. And this would be true if the guy was at home, woman was in whatever it was. We did end up doing a pretty good job in that instance at turning that around, because I understood she was the most important person in his business. He didn't understand it yet, but I did, and I helped him understand it. And I've watched Cindy and her support of me, and I get it. I got it a long time ago. And so as we look at it, and you might be working side by side in the business. You both might be licensed, whatever the circumstance. Your partner is the most important person because they have the greatest influence on your emotional state of mind. When you're discouraged, they can lift you up. Well, the reverse is also true. When you're lifted up, they can discourage you. And you got to make sure it's going the right direction. When this happens, you're not twice as strong. You're 5 times stronger. These both going to come at the same time. Now, I'm going to show you 2 pictures here. Before I do, One of them is Britney Spears and Kevin Federline. Now, if they had come into our business, both being quite often seemingly idiots at times, their business would not have succeeded any more than their marriage did. And so you look at this kind of situation versus, say, Swan and Wah Went, you know, where Wah has been the most supportive person in Swan's world. And I remember when Cindy and I sat down with Wah early in Swan's career, before Swan kind of got himself organized at all, but she had tremendous organizational abilities, and she came in and she got the business together, operationally, all that stuff, you know, and would give constant feedback to him and to the teammates. I mean, she's as strong as he is, just like Cindy's stronger than I am. And I tell you what, we look at these celebrity marriages, and that's like stupid stacked on stupid. And then we look at these quality marriages that get built in even stronger situations in the business, and you watch magnificent things get accomplished. You watch thousands of lives get impacted. You watch wonderful families being raised. It's exciting to be a part of. But here's my challenge to you at the end of this one. Quit pretending this is not having a dramatic impact on your business. If you're guilty of that, you're in a failure trap, right? And you need greater teamwork in the home. All right, let's move on to number 3. This is something that we see a lot of, lack of commitment. You know, it's interesting how in so many ways in our lives we all do this, that we try and get through life with a minimum of commitment. Sadly, you watch that happen in people's spiritual lives. You watch it happen in their business lives. You see it happen in their family lives. You know, I mean, so you got to ask yourself a question, and now let's just apply it to the business. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Is it because you have a mild interest? It is kind of interesting. You're learning a little, or is it a true passion? And there's a big contrast between those two as it relates to our commitment. I did 2 follow-up interviews yesterday, and one first presentation from recruiting interview, and I addressed this in all of them. I tell people, hey, I don't mind if you have a mild interest in the business and you want to kind of come around and hang around a few classes and learn a little bit, but I can't build with that, right? Life doesn't really change because of our mild interest, right? We don't reach out and cause great things to happen because we are mildly interested in something. If you have a mild interest in a sport, you don't become good at it. You know, you have a mild interest in becoming a better person, you don't become much of a better person. All right? So this isn't about it being kind of just interesting and learning a little. It's about passion. I want to know, do you want to control your life? Do you want to really help people? Do you want true independence? Do you really want to become debt-free? Do you want great peace of mind in your life? Do you really want, and are you going to go become financially secure? These are the kind of things that need to well up in you emotionally. Control and independence and financial security and making a difference in your life and having the peace of mind that comes from winning. You know, that's what we've got to instill in our people. That's the dream that we sell. These are the kind of things that have got to be on their hearts and minds, or you're going to have constant lack of commitment in your business. If you're talking about product and product features and stuff like that, and you're just bringing in wholesalers and they're chatting about Western Reserve and this or that or Transamerica, you know what? That's not going to lift them up. Our job in leadership is to inspire people to overcome lack of commitment. Almost everybody that joins. When I joined, I lacked commitment. I mean, I joined the business. I hardly did anything for 2 weeks. You know, back then you had to get the fingerprint card before you could send it in to get your test date. I wouldn't even go get the fingerprint card. You know, my leader had to call and find out where I could get it and when they were open, and call and tell me he was driving all the way to my house and he lived about 40 minutes away from me, and And I better have that fingerprint card under the doormat when he got there so he could send in my paperwork. And, and I thought, oh, crap. And so I went and did it, but it took that, and shoot, I sure didn't look at that point like I was going to become a giant in the industry, so we all kind of have this disease. And we've got to face it and challenge it, because not only will you fail if you lack commitment, but you'll also fail if you don't get pretty good at helping people overcome their lack of commitment. So this is something you got to talk about. If you did a training session on just this slide, it would be a big deal. But the reality is you've got to accept, again, a strong sense of personal responsibility, in order for this business to work for you, right? A strong sense of personal responsibility is about commitment. I mean, that is it. That's the source of it. And so you've got to develop this strong sense of personal responsibility. You've got to continue to constantly encourage your people to develop. The thing that I'm looking at as a mentality for our people, and I know they're going to win if they say to themselves, I never accept defeat, I'm all in. Now, I'm not a gambler. I'm serious, not in this sense, that's for sure. I work too hard for my money to leave making money up to chance. But the reality is, man, I love it when every once in a while I go by ESPN, and I still haven't figured out how poker has become a sport to be covered on ESPN. But anyway, I get football, and I get golf, and I get basketball, but not poker, right? Anyway, but the one thing I love about poker is the words all in, where the guy takes everything he's got, shoves it at the center of the table, and it's all or nothing. The guy's either going to double up or he's out of the game. And I love the spirit of that as it relates to commitment. I decided I was all in a long time ago, and when you really do decide that you're all in, you can't be defeated. You will win. You'll get what you want to get. It won't always be in the time frame. Doesn't mean you won't be frustrated, but it does mean you won't be stopped. And that's what I'm looking for in terms of leadership in this company, and in terms of the people I want to mentor, is the people who shoved all their chips in the center of the table. All right, number 4. Believing in what you do. You see, our challenge here for a lot of folks is not engaging emotionally and passionately in what we do for people. After my first few appointments, when I saw how much people were struggling financially, how little understanding they had of these things, how little feeling they had for any kind of a plan of action for themselves, I started really engaging emotionally and passionately in what we did. That has remained at real intensity in my heart and mind for 32 and a half years. I got a license 33 years ago this August. And I have loved what we've done for people ever since. And people feel it when we're around them. They feel if we're kind of engaged only with our own things. You see, one of the bottom lines here on this is almost everyone needs a plan. They don't have a plan. They might be saving some money, though a lot of them aren't. They have some debt, but they don't have a plan to eliminate it. They have a little bit of money, but they don't have a plan to really reach their retirement number. They maybe save a little money for their kids' education, but they don't have a goal in mind. And without those things, you don't achieve what you want to achieve. Our products, as I've mentioned before, are more than features and benefits. There are things that change people's lives. Well, I know an IUL product, and I know its tax advantages, and I know its average rate of return, and I'll look back, and all that. I understand those features. But the fact of the matter is, when we get started on this stuff, we start building habits that change our lives. They shape our lives financially, that will lead us to financial security. And it's a tragedy that we've got so much arrogance in our industry that they won't even go out and help most people if they're not high net worth clients. Our families and the families out there need our help desperately. And this is a failure trap. I come into you come into a lot of offices in the traditional industry, and they feel like morgues. They're cold and no one's excited. I love coming into one of our offices that are packed and people are crawling all over each other and people are fighting over a drawer in a desk to put their stuff, and people are out helping families and changing lives, and and the rest of the industry doesn't know what to make of us. I think we're silly for going out and helping people who don't have a lot of money. I think they're arrogant for not doing it. And I have all kinds of emotional involvement with this. This is one of the things that gets me up every day to do this business. And I love it. I love what we do. I got a communication, a call from a client who came back, and we hadn't been able to get back and close it because the guy had kind of a surprise trip and had to go to China. And he's back now. He's just been back a couple of days, and he already called. He says, let's get together. I want to do that. And that's cool, but I believe that's because we made a connection with him because of our conviction, because of our passion, because I look at him in the eye and said, you have got to do better. You have got to save more money. There's no question about it. It's not like you can or you can't. If you don't, you're going to be really up against it, in 15 or 20 years. You've got to change it now. You've just got enough time to make some changes and change your future reality. And it got to him. I scared him. And it's because of every word I was saying was the absolute truth, and I'm emotionally engaged with it. And I hope you are too. Because if you're not, you're in a failure trap. I want you to picture that that bear trap at the beginning in the first slide, and know that you got your head in it. And you got to build this in your team. And you build it by talking about situations like what I just talked to you about. And when you go out and do some great job with somebody, show them what their number is, that they're on track for their number. And, just keep telling them the good that you're out there doing and that the other people on your team are doing. We don't talk enough about it. When you deliver a death claim, when that happens, what a sad thing that is. But, man, I'm so grateful to be able to deliver the claim. And there's never been a time I wish I hadn't delivered more. And so all of this stuff is part of believing. And what do we have if we don't have belief in what we do? All right, let's go to the next one. I'm going to talk to you about something that I've been talking more and more about lately. I've added it to my list of failure traps. You've heard me say that 100 years ago, 9 out of 10 people were working for themselves. And here we are 100 years later, and more than 9 out of 10, like 93 out of 100, are employees. Well, there's a real difference. I was in one of the interviews I was doing yesterday, the follow-up. The guy started a business and had been in the construction area, and he started in 2007, basically took all his money and started this business. And then, of course, we know what happened in the construction industry with the crash in 2008 and all that stuff, and he fought and fought. And finally, he lost his business and went back to work for where he used to work. Fortunately, he had that option. And but he learned some things. And one of the things he learned, and he talked about it, he said, man, I have a better understanding of what it takes and how important my revenue is and how I got to keep my expenses down and how I got to make sure I'm making a profit. He says, in my family too. I said, this kind of guy I want representing our message in the marketplace. But he learned that very clear and was emotional about it because of the experience as an entrepreneur. When you go to school, and when you start going to school, kindergarten, first grade, everything is about learning not to make a mistake. All right? You turn in your paper, it comes back with red marks, and you go, man, I got to make less mistakes. Maybe you start studying a little bit more, and all these things start to fall, piece together. And we don't want to make a mistake. And that's school. And it gets reinforced. We get to our SAT and ACT exams where, for these college entrance exams, and dang it, they'll penalize you for making the wrong answer. Not only do you not get credit for getting it wrong, they take away at some points, for you getting the wrong answer. Now we're really messed up, right? Oh my gosh, I'm not sure the answer. I don't want to guess because then I might lose points. Man. And then we go to work somewhere. We get out of school, don't make a mistake, and we go to work at don't take a risk. And I watch that in people we work with in this company, interacting with the corporate guys sometimes, and especially people underneath a level or two, and they won't make a decision. They don't want to make a mistake. Man, my boss might get mad at me. I get a ding on my employee review. Well, I understand how that works, and that's their world. If I was there, I'd probably be doing the same thing. But dang it, I'm glad not to be one of them. I'm an entrepreneur. We're training people to be entrepreneurs. Right? This is all about depanzifying people. What's amazing is that when you MBAs, Master of Business Administration, you go get a graduate degree, a master's in business, their failure rates as entrepreneurs are remarkably high. Because that just is another 2 years, and a lot of places are reinforcing don't take a risk and don't make a mistake. I'm generalizing. There's some programs that really do prepare people for more entrepreneurial capacity. But I tell you what, the failure rates don't lie. And there is a big failure rate when they go into business. And so don't make a mistake. Don't take a risk. This kind of stuff. This is the way employees think. And yet it's the opposite of what needs to happen in business, because entrepreneurship is a different mentality. Making mistakes is how we learn, right? But here's the deal. You don't make a mistake and then go sit in a corner and cry yourself to sleep, right? Don't make another one and learn from it. When I first went out and did when I first did a presentation in the home, for the products and services, and I won't tell you the whole sob story, but the only training I'd gotten is I'd watched the guy give a presentation for 15 minutes, and it was my memory of that I gave my first couple of presentations, and it's crazy. And I went out there, and I'm kind of the blind leading the blind at this point. I'm in the home, and then the person goes, "How does this work?" And I go, "I don't know." Anyway, I walked out of there with like 14 things written down that I didn't know the answer to. It's a great moment, but the point is, I then got on the phone to my leader and said, and I wrote down the answer to each one of them. I got the answer. Then I called the guy back and gave him the answer. Now I could have said, well, I'm not going to go out there until I feel like I know the answer to all these questions anybody might ask. Right? Well, that's the way an employee might do it. That's the way a student, right, in school might do it. But I went out there and did it. It wasn't going to kill me. I wouldn't do this and learning to fly an airplane, right? But I'll do it. And so I went out there, got asked a bunch of questions to know the answer to, wrote them down, got the answer, called him back. I ended up doing business with the guy. Right? Next one, I probably got another 10 questions. Wrote them down, got the answers, called him back, ended up doing business with that guy too. Making mistakes is how we learn. But here's the deal. You got to learn fast. You got to be bold. You got to take charge. This is what entrepreneurs do. And this isn't rhetoric. This isn't a pep talk. You do have to learn fast. You do have to be bold. You do need to take charge. It's your career. You need to answer something, go find it. Don't wait around for somebody to give it to you. All right, go out and create some activity. Learn some things about what you don't know. Go back and talk to somebody who does and get better at it. That's what that's a different mentality than employee mentality. And you aren't an employee. You're an entrepreneur. Right? It's interesting because the difference with being an entrepreneur and being an employee or being a student, think about it. When you go to school, all right, you get training, or like most traditional companies, they give you training and then you take a test. In business, when you're being an entrepreneur, I went out and took the test and then I got the lesson. And that's the way our thing works. And so sure, we want to train, we want to have a field trainer there, we'll have some good classes, we'll have some good online stuff. But at the end of the day, you only absorb so much. You got to go out and take the test. And then you start getting taught the lessons. And that's the way it works. That's how I learned to do BPMs. I went out, took the test, and started giving them. And then I started learning how to give them by doing it. This is like a sport. You can hang in a classroom all day learning about a sport. But then you step out in the field, You know, and it's a whole different ball game. You know, I could study golf. I could listen to people teach about golf. Then I got to take a club in my hand and go out on the golf course and fight the fight. And so do you. And so do our teammates. And so, you know, it's interesting. I was reading a book, and the book I've recommended to some of you that Kiyosaki wrote with Donald Trump called The Midas Touch. And he talked about when he was training to be a combat pilot, he went down to Florida and got flight lessons and learned how to fly an attack helicopter. But he was learning from people who taught him how to fly. And they weren't combat pilots. Then they shipped him off to Camp Pendleton on the West Coast, and all his trainers were combat pilots, guys who had stayed alive in war. And so they were a little bit different level of intensity. And he commented. Now he went and he went out in the tarmac with other guys that were going to learn from these guys. And there was this gunship all loaded with his missiles and everything else. And he thought, wow, getting a C in this course means you're dead. And he says that's the problem with combat. He says, you know, there's a difference between flight lessons and being at war. You know, and he said and he compared that to business, to be an entrepreneur, the test lesson thing. He says, all of a sudden he's out and he's flying in combat, and people are shooting at him, trying to shoot him down and kill him and his 4 crew members. And someone I think it was his co-pilot, said to him, you know what? Basically, you know what sucks about this job? As they're being fired upon, he said they were making a firing run on a position on a hill, and he said either that guy's not going home or we're not going home. I mean, the guy put it in very stark terms. Combat. He said either we're going to get him or he's going to get us. There's no in between. One of us is not going home today. You know, and this is a lot easier than that, you guys. Right? But they were out there taking the test and learning the lessons. That's the challenge of combat. There's only so much preparation you can do. And that's the challenge of entrepreneurship. You got to get out there and take the test. And then you'll learn the lesson. That's why I say you got to depansify. The pansyitis is a big killer. It's about moving from employee mentalities to entrepreneurial mentalities. All right, number 6. Lack of focus on personal width. Giant failure trap. You know, we've got to take time every day to make personal contact. Every day. I covered some things about this in the last webinar. I'm covering it again now, because a bunch of you didn't react to the last webinar, so I'm trying to get you to react to this one. I tell you what, it seems like we try to make every excuse to not go personally wide. I'm too busy. I hardly have any time working with the guys I got now. You know, all 3 of them. You know, and or you got a little bit going with 2 legs. And man, you need to get up where you're 5 leg wide and 10 leg wide and 15 leg wide. And that means you got to discipline yourself. You got to set some time every day to make personal contact. Next, you got to maintain a top 25 forever. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to some people about it. Actually, some people in the Chairman's Council up at the top of the Transamerica building last week. And I pulled out my yellow notepad, and there were the current top 25, it's actually 26, that I had updated, that I'm making contact now with. You got to maintain a top 25. So I've been in the business almost 33 years, and I'm maintaining a top 25. Now, a bunch of you, within the sound of my voice, if I ask you to show me your top 25, you don't have a current one. There's something magical about having a current, fresh top 25. You know, there are things you always need to be doing. Here's one of them. Always be making friends wherever you go. That doesn't mean you're talking about the business right away, but you've got to build a habit of friendship making, of being friendly. Now, I'm a private guy. It is not my nature to always be reaching out and saying hi to people and creating more buddies. I had to learn to do that. I'm an introvert by nature. My dad taught me that I learned to be an extroverted introvert. But I found out that I needed to go personally wide, and I found out I probably wasn't going to go personally wide if I didn't ever talk to anybody. You know, and so I was going to have to learn to talk to people and always be making friends. So I make friends of people wherever I go. I might be a server at a restaurant, and this person isn't in our market, and I'm not going to recruit them. But I constantly practice friendship. You know, where are you from? How long have you been working here? Are you going to school? What else are you doing besides this? I mean, I love getting to know people that way. Do you have a family? It's fun getting to know people. I learned it was. I found out that I became a better person when I did that. And when it comes to personal width, I want you to keep in mind, cold prospecting is the worst way to go, and referrals the best way to go. So I'm always making friends and getting referrals from those friends. That's what keeps my top 25. You know, when I moved to this area, I started going to church. I have a dry cleaner. We go to certain restaurants. We go to the grocery store. Wherever we go, we make friends. You know, we go to Bed Bath & Beyond. I end up meeting, the manager of the store, and we start building a friendship there. I went by to, get my car service. The guy was looking at a car, and I ended up talking to that guy, and we made connections with him, sat down and talked to him about the business. And this is the things that work, But the reality is, when you think about it, I've used the football analogy before. If you aren't always drafting new players, pretty soon your team looks like this. Imagine the NFL without a college draft. In a few years, everybody on it would look like this. And that's a shot. And hey, he looks like he's in good shape, but he's a little bit old to play tackle football. And let me put it this way: his 40-yard dash wouldn't be very impressive. It's in fact, he'd probably want to play touch or laser tag. Anyway, the bottom line is you've always got to be drafting new players. Because even if you're pretty wide now, you're going to have people that run on hard times. Some of them will stop doing the things they should be doing, and they'll fade out of the business. Some will tire of the business. That's just life. And so you've always got to be drafting new players. This is a gigantic, big-time, killer failure trap. Lack of focus on personal width. Let's look at another one. This is the challenge. This is one of the things that we do. Instead of going wide, we start waiting for people. We get a small group together and we tell ourselves they're all going to SMD. Woo! I've got the, and so I say to you or mine now, I go, how many you got in a team are going to be at SMD? 5 of them, 6 of them. It's the 6 guys who you actually have coming to the meeting. They're all going to be SMDs. They told me they all want to be SMDs. Dream on. There ought to be another exclamation point after dream on. Right. Yeah, sure they are. Man, I hope one of them does. But the reality is you get a small group together, you kind of delude yourself. Every month you sit down with them again and reset their goals because they didn't hit them that month, and they didn't hit the month before, and they didn't hit the month before that, but now you're going to sit down with them one more time. And this time they're really going to do it, and so they set their big goals, and you add them all up, and you start drooling, and man, we're going to have an awesome month, and you calculate your commissions and the recognition you're going to get at the convention. But the problem is, you wait, they wait. They never do get after it. And gradually, you start losing each one of them. You can't be waiting for people. You notice that dogs never chase a parked car? You ever notice that? Or if it did, that'd be the dumbest dog on the planet, right? And if if you think they're going to chase you and you're parked, then you might be dumb as dirt too, right? At least you're doing a dumb thing, and that's not good. And that's a failure trap. And I've watched a lot of people fall into it. The bottom line is nobody's chasing the train that's not leaving the station. People only run to catch their plane when they're late. People only run after a train when it's leaving. And people always got to have a feeling from you that you're on the move, that you're adding width. You love them, but you're not waiting for them. I'll support you. I believe in you, but daggone, I'm not going to wait for you. Not a chance. We're constantly moving down the road. Number 8. Failure trap. Number 8, defining the law of averages. right? That's like sitting at a roulette wheel in Las Vegas, yelling your head off that you wanted to hit your number every time. And pretty soon, now, it wouldn't take long, they'd carry you out of the casino. Well, you shouldn't have been in there anyway. But the bottom line is, the law of averages is going to guarantee either success or failure. It guarantees success or it guarantees failure. It's going to guarantee something. You know, you're either going to work with it to create success, right, and win, or you're going to work against it and get your butt beat. Now, I'll give you an analogy. Before I put up the picture, I want you to think about something. I want you to picture now that I'm standing with you. This is kind of grim analogy, but I'm making the point. And I have two dice in my hand, two die, I guess they're called, and then I say, hold out your hand, I put the dice in. And then I take out a gun, and I show you it's loaded, and I pull the hammer back, and I hold it on you. You know, when I'm really dramatic, I say, okay, I put it to your forehead. Anyway, it's too violent of a world nowadays. I don't enjoy the analogy as much. But let's say we look at it this way. Roll 10 sevens or you die. All right. So that's it. You got to roll 10 sevens or you die. But the critical question you've got to ask is, in order to know how worried you need to be, is how many times do I get to roll it? Now, if I tell you only get to roll it 10 times, you better hit your knees and start praying, because you need divine intervention. Right? But if I tell you, hey, you get up to 1,000 times, you're just going to tell me, hey, don't get an itchy trigger finger. I'll be out of here in a minute. Right? Because you'll roll 10 sevens when you got a chance to roll dice 1,000 times. You roll a lot more than that. You see, that's the difference. Right? Because what causes you to stay out of the failure trap of defying the law of averages or trying to beat the law of averages is the law of high numbers. The law of high numbers is the key to victory. If you want 25 recruits this month, you and your team just can't talk to 25 people. They just can't probably talk to 50. You at least got to have good one-on-one quality presentations with 75. You can't avoid it. You invite, right, one person to the meeting, the odds are they're not coming. Right? You invite 6, and 3 of them, right, show up. You know, and so you invite 2, one of them shows up. So it's that kind of thing. You do 2 presentations, you're probably going to get 1 close. And the law of averages is going to control you. You got to help your team not to try and resist it. To understand that they got to involve themselves with more activity and more people. But if you think somehow you've got a little handful of people and you're going to defy the law of averages, you'll start waiting on people and you'll stop going wide. And that's 3 failure traps all in one. Right? And that's not going to work. All right. Law of high numbers is the key to victory. You want the law of averages on your side. Right? You want it guaranteeing your success. Remember, remember, remember. You work with it, you win. You work against it, you lose. All right, let's go to number 9. Keeping high standards and expectations. And keeping that in every aspect of your business. There's the poster. Mediocrity. Set the bar low enough and everyone is exceptional. I've seen people do that in recognition in their teams. When they start giving plaques for somebody showing up for a meeting. And that's setting the bar pretty low. You know, and the reality is, I give recognition when people start to excel. That's a part of the incentive for this. But here's the thing. You've got to set and keep high standards in all the following areas. First one, your quality recruit. You got to stay in the right market, age, marital status, career, income situation, or you're going to struggle in your quality of business. You're going to struggle in the terms of the leadership you develop. I'm not talking about being an elitist or not recruiting anybody, right? But the quality, strength of character, good people, that kind of stuff. Your quality recruit's a big deal. You've got to keep your standards up here. You slip or you let it slip with your teammates, and they're going to get hurt. Hey, you got to keep up your standards in terms of your personal recruiting and your personal production. You got to set a personal leadership example in both of these areas, right? If you're not personal recruiting for personal production, I guess you're just waiting on people. You know, that would be a sign, right, that you were not showing the way. Now, you could have gotten so big and built so wide after years or decade and a half in the business, or maybe this is the same thing, but I still personally recruit. I just assign it to other people. I still go out in the field and involve myself in presentations, but I let the other agent write it because, one, I'm so busy with so many things now that I'm not a really good agent. But I'm really good in the presentations and recruiting and helping people understand how important this stuff is. And I still like to go out and do it. It keeps me in touch. It gives me extra energy in the business, makes me sharper in my training, right? And I love it. I guess that's probably number one. But it has other benefits too. You know, and one of the things you've also got to keep your standards up is don't forget, right, about the quality, consistent quality in your sales presentations and your recruiting presentations. And that means you've got to keep training on them with your people, because here's what happens. I would get everybody together. We do this once a month with our with all our leaders in our base shop, and we would review our sales presentation. And there was a guy that was doing it real sharp, and I had him give up training, probably the best training I'd ever seen on how to give a great sales presentation. I was so impressed. About 3 months later, I decided to use them again because I wanted people to see that example. And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe how much he changed it in 3 months. He was doing stuff, talking about that, doing that. He said, about halfway through, he says, at this point, I stopped using the presentation and I used this book. That was back in the days you could actually use the book, and he wasn't securities licensed. And I went, what? You know, and I had to have him sit down. You know, and that's why you've got to review this stuff. Just because the guy did it good once doesn't mean he doesn't go off on all these tangents, you know, a few months later. And so that's part of keeping the standards up in your business, is you're constantly reviewing these things to your teammates. I mean, you know, you take a look at professional sports teams. You take a great basketball team, whether you take the Bulls or the Lakers or the Heat or, you know, the Celtics or right now the Thunder is a great team. Do they practice every day? I mean, practically every day. They've been playing basketball practically every day, all of those guys, for the last 20 years of their life, 25 years of their life, or 30 years of their life, and they still practice. Right? They still run plays. They still go through what they need to go through. Inbounds plays, offense, defense. They practice. So what makes you think we can practice a couple of times and stop? This is just part of what we do to be excellent. That's holding up your standards. That's holding up your expectations. And so you got to do it. I'll just rattle the rest of them off. You got to do it with your BPMs. You got to pay attention to the quality of your classroom training. That's why I always believe in outlines. Otherwise, I mean, boy, goofy stuff starts sneaking into it. And I've seen plenty of it. Right? You got to pay attention to your field trainers. I make my field trainers sit down in front of me and I say, okay, show me in 20 minutes. You know, walk me through how you're doing a presentation. That, you know, when you pick up somebody or the recruit picks up you, the trainee, you know, what are you talking about? What do you do in the home? What do you do with, you know, and I make them walk through the whole thing to keep my field trainers sharp. I just don't take for granted that they're good at it. Right? You got to keep our standards up and starting our people fast. This is one of the areas where we drop the ball. Someday I probably should make a failure trap off just that one, of not getting people started fast. Just like quality of recruit could be its own failure trap. All right, but I think it all fits here well within standards and expectations. You've got to have urgency and energy. And you've got to, what else? You've got to keep up your standards and expectations in terms of the attitudes. Here we go. Here's my bottom line thing again. Always fight mediocrity. Mediocrity is all around us. It fills our world. It fills government. It fills the schools. It fills businesses. Always fight mediocrity. Right? I hate it. Call me anything but average and ordinary. That's something a mentor of mine used to say all the time. I adopted it as my own. fight mediocrity. Fight against it personally. Help your team fight it. Set and keep high expectations and standards in every aspect of your business. Review it, train it, stay on top of it. Otherwise, you start to drift and lower that bar, and pretty soon you're not teaching people what they need to do to win. All right, last one, number 10. Financial foolishness. That is a dumb bear right there, right? I happen to think this is probably the leading cause of business failure. But doesn't care what I think. That's what statistics show. Just being dumb with our money. Financial foolishness. And so I want you just to keep these basics. You know what? Again, you've heard me talk about this before. I'm relentless. You notice I talk about the same stuff over and over again about what it takes to win. I give you new pictures, maybe a few different bullet points, maybe tell you a couple of different stories, sometimes not even that. But the reality is, you've got to keep yourself under control here. So let's talk about it. You got to keep, next one, your personal and your business expenses low. What's crazy is I've seen people who blow up their personal expenses, but they somehow keep their business expenses low, which is better than screwing up both of them. I see people screw up both of them. But at the same time, I've seen people keep their personal expenses under control and blow up their business expenses, which is really dumb. I'd rather be spending it on myself, but the reality is, and I don't mean invest in your team, but I mean you get way too much of an office, you get too much staff, you buy this big old copier, and all this stuff where you just blow too much money on the deal. You want to keep it lean, personal and business. You've got to keep saving a bunch of money. That's the game. Because your goal is real financial independence. And let's review again what real financial independence is. It's not about spending, it's about saving. And you got to remember, don't forget to protect yourself. I mean, you better have coverage on you, right? Because while you're building financial independence, and you have a family depending on your capacity to earn, you protect yourself. I mean, it'd make me sick to think one of our own guys didn't take care of themselves, and that happens too often, right? You've got to reduce and ultimately eliminate debt. This is what we teach the consumer, right? And this is what we've got to make sure we're teaching each other. You've got to have sufficient cash to cover your expenses for a year. And you've got to develop enough long-term savings to provide for your family for life. And so these are the things, this is what makes financial independence. You're saving, you've eliminated debt, you've got a bunch of cash to cover short-term needs, and you've got a bunch of long-term savings where, right, if your revenue stopped and you stop working, you can provide for your family for life. That's real financial independence. If you're not working toward that, it's financial foolishness. If you're all blowing it on this and that, and because you want people to be impressed with the stuff you buy, then you're in trouble, because your responsibility is to set a winning example. So, if your economics make you feel and look like that bear in that picture, then you got to go to work in this area. So there we were, right? Our 10 failure traps you got to pay attention to. Remember what they are: character strength, teamwork in the home, lack of commitment, believing in what you do, or I guess the failure trap would be not believing in what you do, not moving from employee to entrepreneur, lack of focus on personal wit, waiting for people, thinking you can defy the law of averages. You can't, but you can put it on your side, right, with high numbers. Not keeping high standards and expectations, and fighting mediocrity and financial foolishness. You look at these things. Are you having a problem with one of them, two of them, three of them? If you are, and take a look at this stuff again, identify what you need to do about it, go to work on it. You eliminate it. You start adding width again. You start setting your first example and holding the standards up higher. You start managing yourself a little more wisely financially. Whatever it is, if you kind of let too much slack in your rope about becoming a better person and you're becoming prideful, a little bit arrogant, you're talking down to your people, try and overcome that. Because that's not going to help you. It's going to hurt you. And so these are the things we got to pay attention to. And let me wind up. Our next webinar is Wednesday, May 9th. And I'm going to talk to you about how to exponentially increase your income. I'm talking doubling it and doubling it again. And I like this. Financial freedom is your next exit. That's Wednesday, May 9th. Right now, your income has been flat. I'm going to talk to you what are the keys, what are the absolute secrets to exponentially increasing your income, to getting it really rocking again. You probably don't want to miss this one, right? And so if you want to increase your income, then be on the webinar with me May 9th. And we'll have some fun talking about how that happens. Like I've said to you before, I'm giving you no theory here. All this stuff is tried and true. And let's make the most of ourselves. And let's make the most of our businesses. And let's help thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands and hopefully millions of people. This is a great business platform, this WFG platform. Build a big business. All right? You have the chance to really have the best kind of life. But you got to bring it to the table. You got to bring your commitment. You got to bring your passion. And we're going to help you all we can. All right, that's it. Looking forward to our next one. And it was fun going through this stuff with you. I hope it's of some use to you. Take care of yourself. And boy, by the time we do the next one, we'll only be about a month and a half out on the convention. I'm sure excited about that. Boy, I mean, it's amazing. We're close to 14,000 people registered. And it keeps climbing, and here we are, what? Gosh, how far out are we? A ways, in almost 3 months. And and we always have a bunch of people walk up and sign in too. And it's going to be amazing. I mean, be ready for that event. And one of the things I was most excited about was we're closing on 4,500 spouses registered in that, and that's dramatically more than we've had. And I want to keep encouraging that also. And my sweetheart Cindy is working hard with some other spouses to make sure there's a great session for them too on what they can do to build the business. So appreciate you and look forward to our next conversation. Goodbye.